And we are back. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Armchair GMs, brought to you in part by Blitz and Kick Podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Matt, that guy over there.
Bugman J. Call me Disabled J today. Sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, something's going on with Jay's eye at the moment, so we're gonna try to speed through this a little bit tonight. That way, he can get that checked out. Admire the dedication, my guy.
All right. Yeah, man. Just gotta try to do what we got to do. So, brother, how's your weekend? How was your weekend?
Well, we just had a party for my now 11-year-old for his birthday, so that was fun. It's always fun to see him run around with friends, that he has, and so on and so forth. And other than that, I'm a weekend warrior. I, work on the weekends, so not really a whole lot. Watch some football after that, but that's about it. How about you, though, man? How was your weekend?
It was pretty good. Got to watch the Braves lose on Saturday, which wasn't the best, but just a lot of yelling at the TV screen. But we got a pretty good bounce back. I got to see, get into the rant a little bit. Got to see the Falcons pull out a last-second victory. Pretty good game. And Georgia Bulldogs, all I got to say is go Dogs. That's it. So
I was going to say, for you, it sounds like it's been a good fall or month of sports for you, at least. I mean, Cubs, they're not in the playoffs. Vikings are playing terrible right now. Like, the only thing I got to look forward to is Michigan football. That's about it.
Yeah, hey, you can hang your hat on that, bud, because they're right on our heels right now.
Yeah,
my wife is loving it.
But small victory. I'll take it. It's the only thing I got.
Hey man, take it where you can get it. I know that's right.
Well, before we dig deep into this episode, we are going to go ahead and run our ads real quick. So you stay tuned, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Fresh Cuts is our amazing sponsor who has been with us since 2020. Fresh Cuts is the local barbershop hangout in Marion, Indiana. If you're looking for a full-service barber with excellent cuts and a welcoming atmosphere, contact Caleb Kemper for an appointment time through www.freshcutsbarbershop.com. Mondays are the best days to get in, although he has plenty of time slots available. And if you happen to miss us live, you'll be hearing us in the shop while you enjoy your fresh cut. Slide on by to Fresh Cuts to pick up some stylish footwear with Caleb's Fresh Kicks collection. From Nike to Jordans, he offers the best price for quality kicks. And if you don't find what you like, Caleb offers custom work for $250. Stop over to 1224 North Baldwin Ave in Marion to pick up yours today, or Caleb also ships all over the U.S. Message him for prices and sizes. Our other people we sponsor, Steve Wood Illustrations and Ronald Morell for Mayor, check out their respective pages on Facebook. And our other friends at other podcasts, the Culture Corner podcast, 1,000 Wives of Weird, and Rules of the Frame. Check them out on their respective platforms listed below.
And we're back. So, you and I talked about it a little bit through our group chat. Kind of an interesting week for football, especially with injuries.
Definitely.
So, yeah, go on ahead. Do you got anything you want to cover before we get started?
Okay. Well, I just kind of want to mix this up. I'm not really going to get into a ATO rant today because obviously we're on a little bit of a time constraint, and also because we won. But it kind of ties into that a little bit. There were 3 quarterbacks, I believe, that have been kind of under the spotlight as far as where it be underperformance, playing safe football, or possibly not being a good fit for their team. And those talking points were going on all week. And I believe 2 of the quarterbacks kind of showed a little bit of what they have. And one quarterback has just played himself right onto the injured reserve where it seems like. But the quarterbacks I'm talking about are Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, and Desmond Ridder. So to start with, kind of go through this with Richardson, as we all may know, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, he may wind himself up on the injured reserve with a shoulder injury. Not playing safe football. Looking for him to be the one, no matter what it takes, to be the guy to push the team to the next level. But we also have to start to think about, he has to start to think about his long-term future. And that has been a talking point in my head. I've been talking about it on Twitter. He's going to end up being another Michael Vick, like Michael Vick 2.0, because he's not going to be able to stay healthy because he's too willing to put his body at risk. And the longevity of a quarterback is something that you can't really play with, because Andrew Luck, that ended his career. Completely ended his career. That ended Michael Vick's career, even though Michael Vick had a couple good years stacked on top of one another. Notorious for getting 2 10-year, $100 million deals. You know what I mean? Well, I don't know if it was $100 million deals. He got them twice. That's all I know. But anyway, but he has to start to think about his position on the team, what he's there for. He's the focal point. He is the building block. He's one of the major pieces. And now he has Jonathan Taylor back on a new 4-year deal. So they have building pieces. You have Michael Pittman. You have pieces. So you have to think about what's best for the team. Should I put myself at risk and try to make this first down play, or should I slide and avoid major contact? It should be the latter. He should start to slide. He should start to protect himself, because he's probably going to be on the shelf for probably 4 weeks. Spoiler alert. And so he has to start to think about that. Now, moving on to Justin Fields and Desmond Ridder. For their each situation, I really felt like they were getting highly scrutinized for their lack of high caliber plays over the first couple of weeks. Justin Fields got into it with the media about the coaching, about them overcoaching him, about not letting him cook, not letting him do what he wants to do, not helping him to grow in the offense. You saw they made a couple changes. Things are getting a little bit better, and he comes out and he has not 1, but 2 very good fantasy weeks. So I believe that he does not need to leave Chicago to be an effective quarterback. I feel like he can do what he needs to do. They can build a team around him, starting with DJ Moore, and give him the opportunity to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC. And with Desmond Ridder, he's got a little bit more to show. But this game, I believe, I'm saying this now, this was Desmond Ridder's coming out party. This was his 9th game, and it's by far his most impressive game of his career so far. Over 300 yards passing, very efficient, over 70% completion rating. And you start to see Kyle Pitts working. You start to see Drake London working. You start to see Bijan Robinson continue to help this team. You see the defense starting to play better. Like, I believe the talking points this week have changed tremendously. And I really feel as if this is the new phase of the NFL. These are the new guys that we're going to start hearing about in fantasy, having fantasy relevance. And then I'm not going to spoil anything else, but later on in the episode, and waiver wire, we're going to talk about someone who could actually help their offense, can help Desmond Ridder stay at this level. But that's just all I wanted to talk about. What do you think? Do you think there's any indication of a turnaround for these two players? I know you probably
absolutely
with the Anthony Richardson,
especially since Atlanta just acquired. I'm sure this has to go with the waiver wire pickup you're probably going to talk about. But, Atlanta just picked up Van Jefferson through a trade with the –
For peanuts.
Yeah, literally. And, And it's not like Van Jefferson is a terrible wide receiver. Like, he can be good. I don't think he necessarily had the opportunities to really shine, with past teams. But I think he can work himself into a number 2 wide receiver for Atlanta and really be a reliable target for Ritter for sure. With Fields, I do feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel for him. There is. Especially, Komet, he's been a little bit he's been consistent so far this year as a number 2 option for Fields. And DJ freaking Moore. I got cooked last week because of him. So yeah, but either way, I can't really knock it. I mean, it's just one of those, he just went off, and just the coaching actually letting Fields go out and play the ball the way he wants to. It worked wonders. Yes. So I can't hate it at all.
Very efficient. Yeah.
Now, for Anthony Richardson, yes, he needs to learn to slide. He needs to learn to play safe football. And he's not going to do that if he keeps taking hits, on a consistent basis the way that he did. I saw that play the other day where he landed on his shoulder, and speaking from experience, I've separated my shoulder. I played 2 years of football, had no business being out on that field. But I can tell you, separating a shoulder does not feel good. Long-term wise, it does not feel good at all. So learn to slide, learn to, not fight for every single yard. Same thing happened with Andrew Luck, as you alluded to earlier. Granted, there was a little bit more to it,
Yeah.
Basically, Indy didn't give him the protection that he needed. But on the back end of that, whenever you would see him make these extra plays that weren't necessarily, required, it didn't help him out long term. So for Richardson, he's got to learn to play safe. I know he's a rookie. He only had 1 solid year of starting at Florida, but still.
Play
safe. Take a page out of someone's. Yeah, play safe. Play safe. Learn from other scrambling quarterbacks' mistakes, per se.
There you go. All right. So where do you want to go from here, bud?
Let's talk about some injury news here. A lot of injuries this year. A lot of injuries. So
you want me to kick it off, or you got it?
Well, I'll go ahead and kick it off since I have some of my notes. So first and foremost, Javonte Williams out of Denver. He practices fully today. He sustained a quad injury a couple of weeks back. Travis Kelce, he's limited in practice right now with that ankle injury he sustained against Minnesota.
Now, with a quick turnaround on Thursday, that's going to be something that you got to keep an eye on, because most times for Thursday games, they're usually walkthroughs. So you're not really practicing. So he could actually miss this game, and there may not be someone there to take up that space that's, waiver wire worthy. So keep that in mind. You guys need to make sure you keep an eye on the waiver wire. On the injury status leading up to that game. We'll definitely know by Wednesday if they haven't said it before. If they Andy Reid's kind of tight-lipped. It may even end up being a game time decision. But week 1, they sat him even though he asked to play. So he is going to lean on the coaching, and the coach is going to make the best decision for the longevity. So keep that in mind. And also, before you pass on that, Greg Dulcich was designated to return from injury reserve Tuesday. So there could be potential for a waiver wire pickup, but temper your expectations on any player coming off IR. Any player.
No, you're good, man. I was just gonna say with that Travis Kelce injury, I kind of held my breath there because I mean they do play on artificial turf in Minnesota, and with the way that happened, I thought, oh God, here we go again. Another injury due to
There you go.
artificial turf, which we need to cover that in an upcoming episode at some point. So
Definitely.
spoiler alert, sneak peek. There you go. But I digress. Austin Eckler, 99% sure he'll play in week 6. So for those that have Eckler, I'd be surprised if he didn't play this coming week. James Conner is to be placed on IR.
That's a bummer because he's been having a very good year.
Don't get me started. He's in one of my leagues and just it's the same league that I also had J.K. Dobbins in, who blew out his ACL in week 1. So that league's pretty much just spoiled for me. So there's that. Deshaun Watson remains day to day so far. Zay Jones is also day to day.
With that knee injury.
Yes, he's got a knee injury, and Deshaun is having issues with his shoulder right now. I'll touch on this one. I'll let you touch on some ones. Amon-Ra St. Brown is probable for week 6. It's his abdomen that's having issues right now. Campbell is optimistic that his star receiver will return next Sunday after missing just 1 game. Actually, 2 more names I'm going to bring up. Devon Achane. I can never pronounce it. Thank you. A-Train, more like it.
There you go.
But he's expected to miss multiple weeks with his knee injury. And last but not least, on my end, Justin Jefferson being placed on IR with that hamstring injury he sustained against Kansas City. Things just keep getting better for Minnesota.
There you go. And there is even more buzz that they are looking to trade Kirk Cousins. Now, I'm going to say this, and I'm just going to leave it there. The favorites right now to pull him would be the Packers and the Falcons. I personally don't believe that either team would really want to make that kind of commitment. But if they did, fantasy relevance would be a lot better, I would believe, for Atlanta than Green Bay.
I can agree with that. I mean, I hate to see Kirk Cousins go. I really do. I mean, I know people
it's got to come
are –
You know it's going to happen.
I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen, but I'd rather see him leave, with an expired contract rather than trade him off. I know there's a lot of naysayers for Kirk Cousins. I mean, even I have been, from time to time. But I mean, realistically, you look at his numbers on a consistent basis, they're not terrible numbers. They're really not. Does he fold under pressure with big games? Yes, absolutely. I mean, primetime Cousins is a thing, and he's terrible.
Yeah.
But he's never really been the issue outside of that first year. I'm going to take a page out of your book. This is a Minnesota rant, all right? It's hard to win games when your defense is giving up 25-plus points a game. It's just not going to happen. Sure, today's NFL, it's going to be hard to stop that many, stop teams from scoring that many points. However, there was this big buzz whenever we hired Brian Flores as our defensive coordinator for Minnesota. And honestly, not much has changed. Not much has changed from this time last year. So there we go. There we go. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Long story short, we just we need to figure out our defense before we dip into spending a whole lot more money on our offense. Sure, Justin Jefferson, he has that potential to be a once in a generation talent.
Take the page out of Atlanta's playbook.
Yeah. TJ Hawkinson, he can be a top 5 tight end every so often, not on a year-to-year basis because he fluctuates, but that potential is there as well. Like, we need
Mhm.
to focus on our defense, though. We're not going to win games if we're giving up 25-plus points a game. Sorry, not going to happen.
Mm-mm.
So,
Not gonna
Minnesota,
happen.
do something with that defense. I mean, I don't care what it is at this point. Do something. Because whatever you got working right now, it's not working. So flip the script a little bit.
Mm-mm-mm. All right. Now I'm gonna take the reins. T. Higgins is still questionable with the rib injury. He's still open to playing, but we're gonna need to see him get some kind of reps on the field during the week in order for that to happen. It hasn't happened up to this point. Also know that he did not play Sunday, so it could be more of a hurry up and wait with him because there's a lot of season to go, and he really has to start to show something before they are willing to put him on the field. They play the Seahawks this week, and Geno Smith. This is from Pete Carroll yesterday. Coach Pete Carroll said Monday that Smith's knee is fine. So he still has a questionable label on him. So let's see how the week goes, and we can make a determination of whether he is a start or sit. Let me see. Jeff Wilson is expected to have his practice window open this week, so he could be a possible add to replace A-Chain. And if any running back I feel that could be able to come in and play alongside with Jeff Wilson and do something good, I would believe that would be Jeff Wilson Jr. Jahmyr Gibbs is still questionable. Got to see him in practice before I start to make a determination on him. We already talked about Anthony Richardson being confirmed out. Tank Dell is from the Houston Texans, is currently in the league's concussion protocol. So he is in limbo for this week against the Saints, who had a very decisive win this week. Shouts out to them. And I talked about James Conner. Rashad Penny is still questionable this week. Oh, big news. I watched the Pat McAfee show. And during the Pat McAfee show, him and Aaron Rodgers are buddies. So Aaron Rodgers was on there today, and he was on there on Thursday, and he was talking about his Achilles. And this is what he said on the Pat McAfee show, and I quote, he said that he's well ahead of normal protocols and remains optimistic that he'll be able to return to action before the conclusion of the 2023 season. He says, Rich Simi of ESPN reports there's nothing normal about how Aaron Rodgers, is what Aaron Rodgers said. There's nothing normal about how I'm attacking this rehab, Rodgers says. The common practice is about 6 weeks in a boot. I was in a shoe in 13 days. That man ain't normal. Do you feel he's pushing it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Torn Achilles, I feel like that's one of those injuries you definitely should not rush. I mean,
No.
obviously, this is a football broadcast. We talk football here, but I'm going to think NBA for a moment.
Mm-hmm. I already know where you're going.
Kobe tore his Achilles, out for a year.
Mm-hmm.
KD tore his Achilles, out for, I feel like it was almost 2 years. I believe Klay Thompson, wasn't he in that? Didn't he tear his Achilles as well? And granted, it took him longer because I believe he tore an ACL at the same time, but it took him almost 3 years to come back. And a torn Achilles is definitely one of those injuries you don't want to rush back. And I'm not saying that, the Jets are a better team. Like, obviously, they are a better team with Rodgers, but they're not going to be a much better team with a half of Aaron Rodgers.
There you
I
go.
mean,
Because you have to think about the hamstring as well.
oh yeah, and we've all seen that clip of literally seeing his Achilles just like pop.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just like, no, you don't come back from that after 6 months and come back to full contact football. It's just like basketball players don't even do that, and they're using completely different muscles of the body. But no matter what, I mean, football is a much more physical sport to
That
where
change of direction, that movement with your feet, your
exactly. Not to
legs,
mention, as a
playing on.
quarterback, as a quarterback, I mean, you're playing from leg strength, chucking the ball down the field.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he wants to try to come back before the conclusion of the 2023 season,
On his plant leg, no less.
yeah, it's just like, no, like don't rush this.
Take
I
your
mean,
time. Take your time, big fella, as they say.
exactly. And the Jets have pretty much gone all in on Aaron Rodgers. Like, they are
Mm-hmm.
committed to you.
Mm-hmm.
So don't rush it. Don't run the risk of tearing your Achilles twice in 1 year, more or
There
less.
you go. And then just just deadening your ability to play at all.
Exactly. So I mean, obviously people know their bodies more than anyone else, but I, as a spectator of sports, I think it's a terrible idea to come back from a torn Achilles that quickly. So that's
All right.
crazy.
I'm going to run through a couple more names. This is a very long list. So if I miss anybody, please forgive me, but I'm going to run through this list pretty quickly. Daniel Jones said that the neck injury he sustained during Sunday's loss isn't the same neck injury he dealt with in the 2021 season. You remember that lingering neck injury in 2021? All right. So he is questionable for this week. And also, Saquon Barkley, his status of his ankle injury is yet to be determined. So he's up in limbo right now. I think I'm right, but if I'm wrong, please don't bash me. Matt Breida is his backup, right?
Yeah.
All right. Dalton Kincaid is questionable, and so is Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox suffered a wrist injury in Sunday's loss. Here we go. You talked about Aaron Jones is out. Obviously, they're on a bye. Pat Freiermuth is also out, and they're also on a bye. And that is the injury news. Also, yeah, we talked about Van Jefferson. We kind of touched on Jonathan Taylor getting a new deal, making him one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL right now, which kind of breaks the mold of what I feel like the NFL GMs were trying to push it lower. And he's allowing that inflation or deflation not to hit and crash the market, which is, I thought, was grand ole. I thought they should have paid him last year. I thought they should have just locked it in. If you know what direction you're going in, he's a 23-year-old running back. Why wouldn't you want to take him with you? He's 23, 24. Why wouldn't you want to take him with you? He is that guy. When he's healthy, his injury risk, his injuries history, it's getting a little lengthy. I know. But the talent is there. We see the history of guys with extreme talent, if given the opportunity to get healthy, how well they can play. Christian McCaffrey is the poster child for never giving up on a player. And I really feel that Jonathan Taylor is cut from the same mold. So don't give up on the player. Let him get it together. Geno Smith's also a guy. Don't give up on the player. Give him a chance to show what he's worth. And I promise you, boo-boo, he will pay it back. I promise you he will pay it back. So I'm saying this because I had two players that were on injury reserve and I held on to him. That was Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. People were telling me to drop him and pick this guy up. Drop that guy. He's not going to play this year, Jonathan Taylor. Oh, Cooper Kupp may not come back full strength. They both showed out today. But Zach Moss is not going away either. That one there. He is not going away. He can. I thought he was washed up when he left Buffalo. I thought that was it. That the chance for him to be a starter was over and done. And now he's coming and taking the load off. And I just cannot imagine how that's even possible.
Yeah, Zach Moss, he definitely kind of proved like that he's not going anywhere the other day. He was just like, okay, sure, Jonathan Taylor's back, but I'm gonna show you that there's more than just one running back on this team.
There you go.
My God, he did. All right, well, shall we get into our high performers, low performers, fantasy grades and whatnot? All right, so I'm going to kick things off with quarterbacks. I'm going to kind of speed through this a little bit. So for quarterbacks, got two names for high performers this week. I got Justin Fields. He went 15 of 29 for 282 yards, 4 touchdowns, 11 attempts for 57 yards for 40.98 points.
There you go.
His play against the Commanders last Thursday, in my mind, was phenomenal. Last 2 weeks, I feel like it's been a complete 180 from the first 3 weeks. Personally, I could see this trend continuing. Just keep going up because he's going up against him, and the Bears are going up against Minnesota this week.
Ooh.
And I mentioned it earlier, Minnesota is giving up 25 points a game, or a little over 25 points per game. And they just don't have an identity as far as defense goes. So in my mind, Justin Fields is a must start against Minnesota. And that's hard for me to say. Another high performer from my quarterbacks this week, I got Brock Purdy. Mr. Irrelevant does it again.
Oh,
he
my
led the Niners to another W, putting a thumping on Dallas. He went 17 of 24, 252 yards, also 4 touchdowns for 34.08 points. It's hard to say if Purdy is that guy because, we've talked about it before. San Francisco has all these weapons, Kittle, CMC, Debo, Ayuk. Either way, he's doing what a good quarterback does. He's getting the ball to his weapons and making sure they can do something with it.
70.8 pass completion percentage. That just shows the efficiency.
Oh, yeah.
They should stop calling him Mr. Irrelevant and call him Mr. Efficiency.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, Mr. Irrelevant is take that name off the table. My low performer this week, I really had to dive deep for this one because of how I get my stats. Mac Jones.
Oh, mama.
12 of 22. 110 yards for passing. 2 interceptions. 1 fumble loss for minus 1.6 points. This performance led to him getting benched.
Again.
It's been tough for Mac the past couple weeks. He's turned the ball over 5 times. Belichick was reported saying that Jones will still remain the starter. It's a bold strategy, if I do say so myself.
Oh, his days are numbered, bro.
Oh, they're numbered for sure.
I'm not talking about Mac Jones. I'm talking about Belichick. He's going to lose. He's either going to lose his job or he's going to lose a title. I think the GM title should be gone. I don't think he's efficiently managing and drafting players that are adequate to play in the NFL. And I'm just going to say it like that.
Either way, blown out 34-0 by the Saints the other day.
Second time this year, they've gotten blown out.
Yeah. So Mac Jones, if you have him, swap him out for someone because he is a capital RISK risk.
There
Don't do
you
it.
go. I'd rather have Dak Prescott or Jordan Love than that guy. I'm just being honest.
Oof. Oof.
Mm.
Let's hear what you got for running backs this week, though.
All right. I'm just going to say it like this. It was a grand week for running backs. I tell you what, there were 5 running backs with over 100 yards rushing this week, which sounds like a low number, but that's pretty good. There are 4 running backs on this list with more than 130 rushing yards. And the first guy I want to talk about is who I believe should have been the man of the day, Zach Moss of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Tyrod Taylor, Lord have mercy. Jonathan Taylor did come back this week off the IR, but it clearly seems to still be the Zach Moss show. He had 23 attempts for 165 rushing yards, 77.2 rushing yards per attempt, which is by far a very high number. His longest run of the day was 56 yards. He had 4 rushes for 20 plus yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. He got 2 receptions on 2 targets for 30 yards, no touchdowns, for a grand total of 33.5 fantasy points. And he started in 73.4 of leagues, 73.4% of leagues consensus. That was a very good game for Zach Moss. For a guy whose role in this offense may dwindle, he is showing that he could still be a capable flex. RB3, maybe even I can't even say it. Never mind. I'm just going to leave RB2 out of it. I don't think he's going to get back up that high. But he's a great he's a great flex option right now because obviously you see he has a role and there's no telling how long it may take Jonathan Taylor to truly get ramped back up. They're probably going to keep him on a pitch count just until he starts to get his legs up under him, literally. And I see a role for Zach Moss. Now, we also had Travis Etienne, had a great game, 26 rushing attempts, 136 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 4 receptions on 5 targets for 48 yards, giving him a grand total of 36.4 fantasy points. Another great game from Travis Etienne, another okay game from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's just the best way to put it. Like, it seems like something in London just gives them a boost.
W is a W.
Yeah, W is a W, as ugly as it was. And I got one more guy to mention, obviously, Devon A-Chain, who may go on the injury reserve, but keep your eyes open. He may be back sooner than you think. 151 yards on 11 rushing attempts for a grand total of 13.7 rushing yards per attempt. Longest rush of the day was 76 yards. 76 yards.
Kid's gonna be tough.
Receptions on 3 targets for 72 yards, gave him a grand total of 28.4 fantasy points. Great day for those guys. Now, let's go to the other side of the spectrum here. Like you, I had to dig a little bit to find some numbers. I'm not going to do Jonathan Taylor because obviously we know he was on a pitch count this week. Matt Breida stepping in had a pretty bad game. 9 rushes for 21 yards. Longest run of the day was 8 yards for a grand total of 3.4 fantasy points. That's not going to cut it in the NFL. We know James Conner went out with an injury, so that put his numbers down. But a guy I keep talking about, and nobody seems to listen to me when I say you need to get rid of him, Najee Harris. He has consistently been underperforming every single game of every single year since I've seen him play football. He's not consistent. He's not creating separation. He's not making these explosive plays that everybody was talking about he was going to do because he is rostered in 94.8% of the leagues. His ADP is way higher than 37th overall running back. He's RB 37 this week. 14 carries, 37 yards, 2.6 yards per attempt. That is garbaggio. There is no way that even with a stiff defense of Baltimore, it's not just Baltimore that had his number. Every team that seems to play him has his number. And I can't put it all on the offensive line because at some point you have to start performing better and scheming yourself ways into a game because Barry Sanders, this was in the 90s, but whatever. He didn't have the best offensive lines, but he made it happen because he was athletic. Najee Harris does not seem to have an athletic bone in his body. He moves like his limbs are made of molasses, and it's not productive. It's not productive at all. So if you have him, you need to be looking for an alternative because he's definitely not a starter. He's definitely not an RB2, RB3 flex option. He's a bench option and potentially a drop option if his game doesn't start to pick up. I don't honestly believe he's going to be a guy you can depend on because he's just not reliable at all. There's no way your roster that high and your production is that low.
I gotta say, hold on, because now you got me curious on Jalen Warren's numbers. I won't spend too much time on it, but like I know Jalen Warren has been kind of like, playing a heck of a lot better than what. Well, I guess not like too much. I mean, granted, he's getting your points. Like 3 out of the 5 games this year, he's at least hit double digits. Jalen Warren, that is. So I don't know. Like it's pretty sad that you can rely more on RB2 of a team to get your points than RB1. So I have to agree with you. I mean, Najee Harris, just go ahead and campaign for a drop option for sure.
He's averaging in the last 5 games, he's averaging 49.4 yards per game. That's what he's averaging over the last 5 games. 49.5 yards per game. That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. 1 receiving yard per game. 1 reception per game. It's crazy. It's just
you're talking about
yards
Najee,
per
right?
game, 7.4 receiving yards per game. Like, what is this? Like, what game are we playing? I don't know what game he's playing, but it's definitely not good football.
It's called trash.
I believe
trash.
I'm sorry to bash you, my brother, but you are the juice that runs out of the bottom of the trash can after it rains. You heard it here first.
Oof. Nasty.
All
right, I'm gonna get loaded on wide receivers real quick. I feel like it was quite an interesting week for wide receivers as well. So, 2 high performers on my end. Listen, we already know one of them. I'll cover him in a second, but the other one, which thank God, Jamar Chase, 19 targets, 15 receptions, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns for 52.2 points. He's open. He's always freaking open. Got to keep it PG rated here. Amazing what a healthy Joe Burrow can do. Jamar went on a tear on Arizona's secondary. And me personally, I see him having another big game next weekend as the Bengals go up against Seattle. Seattle's defense is ranked 32nd against the pass so far this year.
Oh my!
So yeah, so long as T. Higgins is going to be out. Sure, they still have Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon, but I look for Jamar Chase to go off again. I'd be surprised if he didn't. And then the other guy, DJ freaking Moore. 10 targets, 8 receptions, 230 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Washington, they had no answers for Fields or Moore. And I touched on this earlier. They go up against Minnesota this week, and I don't see Minnesota trying to figure out that equation either. So
I know
Moore Moore is projected to put up 18.17 points according to NFL Fantasy. Me personally, I could see him getting 25 to 30 points in full PPR leagues.
There you go.
For low performers, I have 2 this week. The first one is Romeo Doubs.
Oh, so no pick on him.
I am this week. I am, but only because in 3 of the last 4 games that he's played, he's averaged 18 plus points per game. So this one, I kind of have to say, hey, come on. He had 4 targets, 1 reception for 4 yards for a grand total of 1.4 points. Hopefully he and the Packers can take this bye week and rest, recoup, reconfigure what the heck is going on, all before their Week 7 matchup against Denver. And I am going to throw Justin Jefferson in the low performer because, sure, he sustained a hamstring injury, but it wasn't until late in the game. And I'm sorry, Kansas secondary isn't that good.
No. Definitely not. They let you torch him in week 1.
Yeah. So Jefferson was averaging 25 points per game through the first 4 weeks of the season. Kansas City somehow had his number. Read between the lines there because it wasn't all just Kansas City. I'm just going to throw it out there. He had 6 targets, 3 receptions, and only 28 yards for 5.8 points. We touched on it earlier. He will move to the IR as he sustained that hamstring injury against Kansas City and will be out for at least the next 4 games.
I got to stash that one. I have him in my veteran league.
But, maybe we could see, Addison or Madison or Hawkinson, step up and be a reliable target for Cousins.
Yeah.
Pending a trade.
Pending a trade. They might just blow up the ship.
They might, and this marriage will come to an end.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Tight ends, and more tight ends. There we go. All right. I got a couple guys to run through. First and foremost, the winner of the week, it looks to be George Kittle. It was short and sweet, threw receptions on 4 targets for 67 yards, but he also had 3 touchdowns, which gave him a grand total of 27.7 fantasy points. Pretty good game, pretty solid, pretty reliable red zone target. So getting that work in, that's how you do it.
He still doesn't know how that shirt got on, though. That F. Dallas shirt.
Oh, my goodness.
No, that wasn't planned.
Yeah, not at all. I'm going to title this Return of the Max because Dallas Goedert and Kyle Pitts put everyone on notice who was talking about their lack of production and lack of efficiency. And Dallas Goedert had 8 receptions on 9 targets for 117 yards and a touchdown, giving him a grand total of 25.7 fantasy points. You couldn't make a better game for him than he had last week. He was there. He was efficient. He made the catches. He secured a lot of catches, averaging 14.6 yards per reception, which is awesome. And I would talk about Travis Kelce. He was number 3, 10 for 11 for 67 yards and a touchdown to give him 22.7 fantasy points. But I want to talk about Kyle Pitts. Honorable mention goes to Kyle Pitts. He was tight end 8 this week after being as low as tight end 20.
I just want to go out on record before you get into the stats. I am one of those people who decided to bench Kyle Pitts this week, and I regret it.
There you go. Well, he had 7 catches on 11 targets. 11 targets. 11 targets. That is showing a commitment to making this team better. For 87 yards and is that no touchdowns? Gave him a grand total of 15.7 fantasy points. One of the best weeks he's had thus far. And that's just an honorable mention, kind of, because that just shows you that the tight end range is getting a little bit tighter. There's a couple guys in there like Sam Laporta, rookie, who's coming in and showing out. Logan, the return of Logan Thomas, for some odd reason, happened this week. And the return of Dalton Schultz also happened this week. And also the return of Darren Waller. It also happened this week. So it's just like a lot of tight ends that we were kind of kicking off to the side. They're coming back and letting you know that, hey, we can come out and we can score 15, 16, 20 fantasy points any given week. Don't say the tight ends is the weakest of the fantasy group because we can come in and show out. We're better than kickers. Better than kickers.
Just do it more consistently. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. But I can give you the numbers here. Okay. There are at least, 14 tight ends this week that scored at least 10.1 fantasy points. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them are rostered in less than 50% of leagues. That shows that there is a plethora of talent out there. It may be hit or miss, but it's getting there. Tight ends are coming back. Return of the max. All right. And on the low side, we're going to go with Zach Ertz, 2 receptions on 4 targets for 10 yards. No touchdowns. 1 touchdown. He did score a touchdown, but he had grand total fantasy points of 9. I don't know how that even works, but it's not good. And let me see. Evan Ingram, 4 receptions on 8 targets for 28 yards for a grand total of 6.8 fantasy points. And he's 94.8% rostered. That is a day one starter kind of signification. He's not supposed to be tight end 20 this week, but that's just a product of the game. He had a bad week when everybody else was shining. His light dimmed out a little bit, and that's not what you want from a tight end. That's not what you want from a guy who's supposed to be a key contributor in your offense. I'm just saying.
I'm going to throw one more name for tight ends that were low performers this week.
Uh-oh.
Because this guy gave me a goose egg in the league that I decided to bench Kyle Pitts. Hunter Henry.
I knew it.
He had 2 targets. Goose egg. Just 2 targets. That's it. I just wanted to say my piece with that. Some tight ends, they need to do better.
Do better. Just do better.
All right, we're gonna go through waiver wire pickups real quick. 3 names come to mind for QBs from my end. Josh Dobbs remains a top name for waiver pickups and through week 6. Sure, he had a tough game in week 5, but he's averaging 24.56 points in 3 out of 5 games this year. I look for Arizona to pass the ball a bit more as James Conner does move to IR. Dobbs is 20% roster in Yahoo Fantasy right now, may prove his worth as we're going into bye weeks and dealing with QBs that may be out on injury. Sam Howell, he had a good week against Washington, putting up 29.42 points. Sam Howell's been a little sneaky. I looked at his stats this earlier today, and he's averaging 23.37 points in 4 out of 5 games this year. I've actually been a little surprised by that. They're not obviously staggering numbers, but
consistency.
Exactly.
He's not pulling you out 9 like Jordan Love.
Exactly.
Or 4. I played him and got 4 fantasy points.
Sam Howell is currently rostered 11.2% of teams, according to NFL Fantasy right now. And I'm going to throw Gardner Minshew out there.
Don't know.
I'm throwing it out there.
Mm-mm.
It's a
I
risk.
Refuse to
It's
even.
a risk. It's a risk. I would say stash him. Obviously, I wouldn't necessarily start him this week. I would pick him up and stash him, though.
The only
Anthony
way I
Richardson,
could see someone grabbing Gardner Minshew the second is if you're in a deeper 14 to 16 team league, 2 QB league, maybe a Scott Fishbowl league. I don't know. But
see,
it's hard.
But see, someone out there may be in this predicament where it's just like, oh no, who do I pick up? Gardner Minshew. My mustache is still better than his. Okay. I was gonna say that stash is looking mighty fine though.
Anyway. All right. I have a list for you guys today. I got a list for RBs. All right. We're going to run through this pretty quickly. With Khalil Herbert being hurt, I have a couple guys that could help. Deontay Foreman. He was a big contributor last year for the Carolina Panthers, brought a lot of consistency. So I could see him probably being in tandem with Roschon Johnson. Roschon Johnson is rostered in 51% of leagues, while Deontay Foreman is rostered in 14% of leagues. With their next 3 games being Minnesota, Las Vegas, and the Chargers, I see that there should be an opportunity for one of them to take a hold of the lead back reins with Khalil expected to miss some time. I also have Justice Hill. He may be more of a stash because this week they're at Tennessee. He's rostered in 33% of leagues. I know I'm going to mess this name up, but forgive me in advance. Arizona, running back Emari DeMercado. He is rostered in 2% of leagues. Their next 3 games are at the Rams, at Seattle, and they're at home against Baltimore. I think he should be a good fit to take over the bulk of the work. I'm saying if you want to grab a waiver wire running back, especially in deeper leagues, please take a shot on Emari DeMercado. He will get you a win. You heard it here first. Anyway, so for Denver, Javonte Williams kind of being in the air, not taking the full workload right now. Jaleel McCullen, 54% rostered. Speed through this. Miami, Jeff Wilson is his IR window. His practice window is open, so he could be out IR to take the place of A-Chain. We talked about him. We talked about Jaylen Warren. He's also on my list, 68% rostered. Tennessee, I saw that there's a stat out here that I'm going to throw out here. Over the first 5 games of the season, Tajay Spears and Derrick Henry snap counts are almost identical, 89 to 88. And it looks like Tajay Spears is taking the bulk of the pass down work, catching passes out of the backfield, something that we saw Derrick Henry do with a lot of efficiency last year. So this is a handcuff opportunity, flex opportunity. Tajay Spears rostered. They have Baltimore, then they have a bye, then they're at Atlanta. I got a couple more names for you. I'm just going to run them down real quick. Samaje Perine, 46% rostered. Chuba Hubbard, A.J. Dillon. And here are some deeper league names. Rico Dowdle, 9% rostered for the Dallas Cowboys. L.A. Rams, Ronnie Rivers. New York Giants, Matt Breida. Jacksonville Jaguars, Tank Bixby.
All right. So, wide receivers, I got 3 names that come to mind. Obviously, KJ Osborne is one since Justin Jefferson is on IR right now. KJ is only rostered in 12% of leagues on Yahoo Fantasy right now. Josh Reynolds is another name that I got. Amon-Ra St. Brown is probable for week 6. But it does open the door for Josh Reynolds, especially since they are still trying to ease Jameson Williams back into rotation. Reynolds is only rostered in 17.8% of leagues on NFL Fantasy. And then we got another indie player. I'm going with Josh Downs. He may be wide receiver number 3 on the Colts roster right now, but he's looking very good right now.
Very good. He saved my league this week in my Veterans League. I was forced to play him, and he came through. 11 fantasy points is pretty consistent. And he looks like he's a little bit more consistent with Gardner Minshew.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking he had 6 targets, 6 receptions, 97 yards this past week. So I say take a chance on him as well. He is currently rostered in 10.9% of leagues on ESPN Fantasy right now. So,
my Atlanta.
Yeah, so those are my waiver wire pickups for wide receivers. Who you got for tight ends?
Your guess is as good as mine. Well, Sam Laporta obviously has to be on the top of the list for me personally, because I feel for a rookie to play so efficiently this past week, it was a breath of fresh air. I tell you what. Obviously, Detroit Lions is my wife's team, so I kind of get a ability to see them a lot more often. And Sam Laporta really stepped up. Let me see his roster status as I look at this. He's currently now 90% rostered, so he is not really a waiver wire option. I am sorry. But I will pivot to Dalton Schultz. Showed a little bit of consistency last week with Houston, and he's only 44.2% rostered. Logan Thomas, he's shown a little bit of life. He's only 12% rostered, 12.1 to be exact. And the last name I will throw out there in deeper leagues is probably Adam Troutman with the Denver Broncos. And speaking of the Denver Broncos, how long do you think? Hold on. Oh, one more name. Luke Musgrave, 24.2% rostered. Now, back to my original question. How long do you think it will be before they officially shut down the Russell Wilson experiment in Denver?
I think they're overdue. I think they're long overdue to shut that down. And actually going to make a funny over this one. So I am employed with Walmart. And, since Bill Walton did buy the Denver Broncos, it's kind of one of those like, can I get a raise for this, loss that we're taking as a company since, we're essentially funding the Denver Broncos. Like, come on. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like, can I get a kickback at least? Like, my God.
I have to stand behind this trash.
I do feel like it's long overdue. It's time to move on from Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like his last season in Seattle was kind of a preview of what the rest of his career was going to be like. It was just going to be a wash. And, looking back on it now, maybe Pete Carroll was a better coach than I gave him credit for, because there for the longest time I thought Russell Wilson was, a great quarterback, and Pete Carroll was kind of like mid coach, whatever. And then, last year happened where Geno Smith was comeback player of the year. In my opinion, Pete Carroll probably should have been coach of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And because, there was a lot of low expectations, and it's just like, okay, maybe Russell was the problem. Pete Carroll, it changed my tune real quick. And we're seeing again that Russell Wilson is not that guy.
Not that guy. All right. Well, I'm going to let you close this out. I have to go to get myself seen about. So I will let you have it, my brother. You guys have a great night. And I will see you. Oh, go ahead.
Sam, I'll catch you later, man. Go get that. Go get that eye checked out.
All right. See you later, bud.
All right. Later. Well, that wraps things up for us on Armchair GMs, brought to you in part by Blitz and Kick podcast. Be sure to give us a like, a follow, subscription, so on and so forth through Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and the app formerly known as Twitter, X. Hope you guys have a good week, and hopefully you guys do well in your fantasy leagues, and we'll catch you next week. Y'all take care now.